Jefferies, who is from Australia, and it seems like, as the original poster asks, that listening to a podcast with Jim Jefferies, he seems quite bitter about the fact that his home country doesn't love him as much as he would like. He says he has no problem selling out gigs here, but they just don't want to give him any time on TV. Are parts of media ashamed of Jim? That's the basic question, and let's see what the comment says. His material isn't suitable for TV here. Australia doesn't have a dedicated channel for more adult-focused content like USA does with HBO, FX, etc. Content has to be fairly bland and not risque, as it can only be put on general interest free-to-air channels. If he's disappointed that he's not on TV here, maybe he should look at quality of what is actually on TV, which is game shows, reality TV, not much to aspire to. He portrays himself as a stereotypical Australian when the truth is most of us don't act or speak like he does. I have no quarrel with him. He's okay. He's made more of a name for himself in the US than he has in Australia. Not many people here know or care about him. He's like Steve Irwin was, the American Australian. Not really though, because from what I've seen of Jim Jefferies, he doesn't really play up the Australian side that much. I mean, he obviously doesn't hide it or makes any active effort to obfuscate that. From what I've seen, he's not the American Australian, like a stereotype, at least from what I've seen. Who? Never heard of him. Okay. He has a bunch of fairly funny specials and shows on US telly. I like him, but obviously he wouldn't have been anywhere near as big over here. Maybe it has to do with there's not as many people here, so it's like the first comment said, it's mostly general interest programming. Is a paradox too bogan to appeal to lefties, too lefty to appeal to bogans? There's a small sweet spot of overlap, but not enough for a mass following. That's reasonable. A bunch of lefties know what humor is, right? Seriously, there are some warped views on the left-wing people here. Keep seeing moderates being mixed up with SJW Tumblrites. I think Jim Jefferies is fucking brilliant at telling a joke that seems bigoted at face value, but then the message joke by the end highlights the irony, hypocritical nature of the view he's representing in his act. I tend to agree with that. I mostly like his stuff. I never heard this analysis before, but it's like I've always known it deep down. Well, I thought his stand-up routines were great. I like his TV show too. This sub is a bad place to gauge Australia's general opinion on something though. That is also correct. Whether the subset of people who are on Reddit from Australia represent the general Australian public is probably not true. Being lefty progressive isn't as much of a novelty over here as it is in the States. Australian politics isn't nearly so entertaining as US politics, so there's no real Samantha Bee nation to exploit. So he's preaching to the choir for half of it and shocking the oldies and sheep for the rest. We love him to bits, but actual TV doesn't have a real place for him. Reasonable, true. He's a bit too vulgar for my taste, but can be pretty funny sometimes. Fine. He's part of Australia that the world like to hear, not a part that the crap TV channels want to promote. I suppose it must be hard to find advertisers who want to be associated with the word cunt. Would like to say it's not a normal word for everyday use like some Americans seem to think, which seems to have been a perception since he became popular. Reasonable, true. Can't stand him. Okay, fine. I find his act insufferable. He's playing a character of what an Australian is for Americans. Or maybe these folks on this Reddit are a better judge of that. I lived in the US for 7-8 years, so maybe he is playing Australians for Americans, and I can't tell that. He throws around cunt and fuck like it's nothing because that's what the character is, but I don't feel like there's anything substantive to the material beyond that kind of shock character. That's not something specific to Australia. A lot of comedians express themselves that way. I mean, like Jim Jefferies is a stage name, and just to build out the character is kind of lazy, and I cringe when he pops up, but that's his act, and hey, if you like it, all the more to you. His bit on gun control is smug, self-congratulatory, and not funny at all, but gets a go-around whenever convenient because it's condescending and fits the progressive agenda, and it's basically what he's known for. Well, I think he's known for more than that, and I found that to be funny. That is a gun control bit. Okay, one more comment. I don't think he's massively well known here. You need to keep in mind that he built his career in UK before jumping over to US a decade later, so he's pretty much a foreign international comedian here. I think that's probably the root cause of the situation here. Personally, I love him. Even his new show, I appreciated that it had a rough and amateur feeling about him, that he's a host and doesn't have the polish and training that all the others have. Legit was a brilliant show too, and he's great at spinning a yarn. Think so. I agree with this person. Evilio MTE. Last comment. Boring shtick. He's not funny. Just plays up his fall Australianisms for the American audience, and they eat it up. I'm probably guilty of that. He's like Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler. He gets by on the marketability of his something different and not actual skills. In his case, it's the novelty of his nationality. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's in my opinion, he's much better than Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler. He's actually funny. And like I said previously, playing up his nationality being Australian is, from what I've seen, it's not overwhelming. It's just something that is in his background, and he doesn't mind bringing it up, and when relevant. That's my reading. Okay, cool. Bye for now.